a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live. Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we currently sit at 100 and the combination of Mark and Gordie Howe, number 2 and number 9, as it is Father's Day, and it is we won't call him the best, we don't call him Hockey Dad, but Gord Howe wore number 9, his son Mark Howe, number 2, his son Marty Howe wore 27, probably the best combination of family that ever played the game, father-son combination. All due respect to Bobby and Brett Hall. I know someone will stand behind, at least one person will stand behind me on this discussion for sure. And then, of course, you can subscribe to the audio as well. We are late. We were chatting earlier about what was going on. We were talking about the fact that I did not have a Seattle Kraken shirt on first, so we needed to mix that up. What else? What did I miss?
I went for breakfast poutine down at Trolley 5, so I'm already on the beer train. So we were talking about that.
Fair. Hello, Chris. What else did I miss?
You popped in. We told you that you needed to get your Seattle Kraken shirt on, and then we had battle of the Orange Cats between Devin and Chris.
There we go. Yes, we had an appearance from Hannah as well.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. You know, I just as a side note here, you don't know how hard it was to actually find a Canadian shirt. There is a place downtown in Vancouver that you should go. Van City Sports, down on Dunsmuir and just a little bit off Dunsmuir. That's where you should go to get your hockey paraphernalia.
I wholly support that. That's actually where I bought my Canucks military practice jersey, the camo jersey.
He has absolutely everything, and he's a really nice guy too. I can't remember. I don't know his name. Next time I'm going in, I gotta know his name.
But yeah, it's definitely a mom and pop shop. So support local.
Yeah, very local. Yes. How is everyone doing?
I'm actually doing pretty good. We had Chris help me in stage 1 of our move as we're moving into a new place as of next weekend. So there was lots of heavy lifting and everything yesterday. So I'm actually doing okay. I'm better than I was expecting.
Fair. Well, that's good. It's good to move. And Chris, you're stronger now for this?
That, and I also was the designated U-Haul driver. Yep.
Fair. And Devin, what's going on with you?
A lot and nothing at the same time. Work's been busy, which is great for us. So yeah, the things are pretty good.
Good.
How are you,
Ryan? I'm okay. I'm okay. I was before we get to me, I was gonna ask you, did Ryan Pinder come back?
I'm working on it as of right now. He is too busy playing golf, not being a father, from what I hear. That's the running joke on Fan 960. So he played Kananaskis yesterday, but I'm really trying to just smooth it along. So as of right now, no, he hasn't committed to a time yet. But if he's not going to, his spot's going to get picked up by somebody, guaranteed. So
Red
Brian,
Warner.
if you are listening, which I know you are, you need to get on and let me know when you're free, because yeah, your spot's gonna be taken.
It's hot here so far, and I'll probably after this go out for a nice walk. I'm doing okay.
The weather here is lovely in Calgary. It's blue skies and probably high teens at this point.
Yeah, we're going to get to 26 today, I think, by the water. So
nice.
Anyway, let's enough small talk. Let's get to why we're here. We'll start with we're going to go backward. Well, we're not backwards, but we're going to go. We'll start with the Islanders and the Lightning. That series is now tied at 2, which guarantees us another opportunity to see the Nassau County Coliseum one more time. I'm seeing people calling this the game of the year. I'm not going to say that was the game of the year. I will say it was the finish of the year. I think it has a nominee for the most outstanding finish of the year for sure. But I don't think this was the game of the year. Was this the game of the year?
I wouldn't say game of the year, but you could make an argument for save of the year with Pollock there.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. Just because how calm he was too. Like there's like 3 seconds left on the clock, and he's just kind of gliding in, like yeah. I'm just gonna go get
for the defenseman glove save. Yeah.
It was. That was something.
Considering he was the one who couldn't get the puck out in the first place, anyways. So if that was me, I'd be sprawling, looking like a fish out of water, trying to make sure that I get a piece of that puck. But yeah, his demeanor, calm, cool, and collective, shined through. And what a move by McDonough too, not to force the shot, but to try and do a little Denny Savard spinorama puck to the net. And you know what? It was a great attempt by both of them, and obviously Pelech came on top, or Pulock.
Yes. What have we thought of this series in general overall? By the way, please comment questions. We'll get to them as we converse going on. There's probably a few themes specifically in this series that I think we can talk about. But what have we thought of this series overall?
It's been the slugfest that I was expecting. Like it's not. You have some skilled players in Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, Barzal, and everyone. But it's been mostly very structured hockey, very grinded out style. But it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, like we were, at least I think it was me and Devin that were both saying like more of a high flying style of hockey, but it appears that Sean's been more correct in his prediction. That being said, it's been just as tight and as close as basically we were all hoping for.
This has been a great series. I've really enjoyed watching it. They I just want to give credit to the Islanders. Like, talk about a pesky, plucky team. Going up against the Stanley Cup champs of last year, the amount of talent that's on the Tampa Bay roster, I don't know how many people actually were giving the Islanders a fighting chance within this series, but they've come to play. And Varlamov, not Vasilevsky, Varlamov has played really well. I thought that he's stood on his head, and the team in front of them are playing like a team. It's not an individual show, Edmonton. So you gotta play as a team, and you have to play the playoff hockey, and that's exactly what they've done.
Well, I think when the Islanders, especially last night, when they're able to take the lead, they have been able to, for the most part, control the series, except the third period last night. I think that was a little bit different, and there's a couple of things that I will get into there. But I think when Tampa Bay has been in the lead, this sounds like Captain Obvious. I should wear a Captain Obvious hat. Whoever has had the lead has had control of the play for the most part. And they've kind of dictated pace. Like you look back at it was game 3. Tampa didn't allow a shot in the final 6.5 minutes. So I think it's whoever is gaining control, whoever has the lead seems to have control for the most part of the series. And then when that identity line of Kazikas, I said it right, Martin and Clutterbuck get going and they start scoring, especially at that barn there, that place is rocking. So I think that's one of the things when Tampa Bay goes back to Game 6, they'll have to figure out a way to stop that in some way, shape, or form.
I think you're right in the sense that there's a similar dynamic as far as like if the underdog is able to score first and control the play, they have a good chance at winning. So like as far as the series comparison, I'd say like they're pretty close in that regard. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun finish for both of these series. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well,
that third line, that Cizikas line, has been solid, but they also haven't really controlled much of the play. But they're doing their job and getting under the skin of Tampa Bay's top forwards.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they've you know what, they played well though. They played well enough to help the Islanders move forward within this series to tie it up. Matt Martin, who would have thought that he would be the game winner, honestly? So it doesn't really matter how good it looks on paper as long as it gets done.
I do think the Islanders will I think they need some more production other than that identity line and Barzal. I think we need to see more from Jordan Eberle. Pajot hasn't scored a point in this series, I don't believe. I'll have to just recheck that. But there's some forwards on the Islanders that I think do need to play a little bit better if they're going to be successful.
That's a fair argument.
That's very. They're being carried offensively by Barzal. You look at his possession stats; he's up over 60% of the shot attempts when he's on the ice. That's an insane stat. But he's got 3 goals, and no one else has 2. And yeah, you're right, and you were correct, Kev, that Pajot hasn't gotten a point in this series yet, and they need those players to step up. They need Jordan Eberle, Anthony Beauvillier to step up and help out Matt Barzal, because you can't win with just one player going.
If you're looking at the time on ice, Zajac has last night was 17:37. He's technically on the quote-unquote third line, but obviously he's getting props from Barry Trotz to be out there for more than just what his line's doing. And there was a bit of a line juggle there last night, putting Paul Marion on the top line and then bringing him back down to the third with Pajot. But you do need JG Pajot to get going, and you do need Paul Mary to kind of solidify his presence on the ice, because he can throw his body around too. So yeah, if you really the supporting cast of the Matt Barzal team needs to be solidified. And I said this on the last podcast too, that I don't think people are really talking about the loss of their captain Anders Lee. That's a massive loss within that lineup. So I think that they're doing a good job right now. But yeah, the supporting cast needs to be better.
Yet the Islanders are actually leading in goals in these playoffs, which is probably would surprise a lot of people considering who has the skill players or the superstars per se. It's not the Islanders, but they are finding a way. It's just that I think they need to get more involved. And I also think we've lamented the acquisition that the Flames regret of not protecting that lottery pick. But to be fair, I think this has been a learning experience for Noah Dobson. I think that's a fair way to say it. He's been good, but he's also been caught. I think I'm being fair there. I'm being nice. I'm not saying he's been awful, but it's been a learning experience.
Well, he has been able to be trusted out there for a certain amount of time. He only had just over 7 minutes of ice time last night, and yeah, you you do have to, take it with a grain of salt that he is a young player. He's still learning. And, this is a good learning time because he isn't being relied upon to be a top 4 defenseman. And then, having that top end defense of Pelech, Kulak, Leddy, and Mayfield, and having Andy Green as his defensive partner for the most part. There's a lot of veteran presence up there, and a lot of journeymen that will be able to help him with his progression. And I think Barry Trotz sees that, and that's not a bad thing, especially because he how old is he? Is he 20, 21, right around there?
Yeah, he was the same draft as Quinn Hughes and Brady Tkachuk in that draft. So it's he's still very young. Young players are going to have really good times and they're going to have these learning times. And Trotz is leaning heavy on his veteran defenseman. Andy Green is the 5th in ice time during this series amongst the 6 defensemen at 68, just under 69 minutes ice time right now. And Noah Dobson's down at just over 48 minutes for the whole series. So you're seeing that, and then that's you learn. You can learn from watching. You can learn from playing your shorter time on ice during these games, I'm really interested to see how, and really intrigued to see how Noah Dobson's career progresses from here, because not only they've been really patient with him in his developments. They didn't play him every day last year, even though he could have gone back down and done that in the queue. But they played and they helped him build up his muscle mass and mature his body a little bit, because you need that, especially as a defenseman in this NHL, and especially now come playoff time. So, but all it takes is one injury, 1 or 2 injuries, and you know how quickly those can happen before him to be relied upon again. Or he steps up and learns, and then he starts getting more ice time. So I'm not surprised that he's the low man on the totem pole for ice time right now. But it is what it is, and he'll be better for it long term.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing him. I to be clear, I want to say that I'm not criticizing him per se, but it's with you look at a Quinn Hughes or a Valimaki or even a Hanifin as an example. It just is another example of why it takes time for defensemen to develop, and it's probably a very good lesson for a lot of teams just to watch what happens with Noah Dobson. So, because I do think he's going to be a really good defenseman, but you have your learning curves for sure.
Well, and credit to Oli Levy too, right? He's still a young defenseman that really needs to find his footing. And if we're going to talk about Toronto as well, Timothy Liljegren as well.
Yeah.
Sandin as well. Like you're going to go through growing pains as you step up into the NHL. And then I'll even go to point towards this upcoming draft. There's a bunch of good defensemen that are likely going top 10, top 12, including potentially a number 1 pick. And I don't think it's something that you need to rush. If Buffalo takes Owen Power and he says, I want to go back to Michigan for a year, you'll let him go, because the NCAA schedule allows for them to work in the gym a little bit more and develop and have their bodies mature and build up some muscle mass a little bit more, because they're only 18, and like most people, especially hockey players, they're string beans at 18 years old. They don't have the muscle mass and the matured body that even veterans at 22, 23, 24 and above have.
Yeah, it's fair. And also since we're tossing names out here, one that had he had a really tough playoff, and I think some fans were really far too hard on him up north. Ethan Bear is another example of what we're talking about as well. Because look, I'm not going to say I love the Oilers, but I think Ethan Bear is going to be a really strong defenseman in the National Hockey League. He had a tough series.
Well, and those are the learning curves that he needs to learn from overall, right? And it's really unfortunate the way that some fans reacted to that because the racial bullshit that is around surrounding that is really too bad. But it doesn't matter. He's a person. He's a hockey player, and he will learn from it. And I agree, Kev. He will be a good defenseman.
Chris, did I interrupt you?
Sorry, there we go. Had to get myself off of mute. All I was gonna say is that's the difference between being 185 compared to coming in at the NHL at almost pushing 200. You could either be easily pushed around, or you could be physically mature and be one of the guys already at that age. So yeah, it's definitely a difference.
Fair. Were you gonna say something, Devin?
Oh, just that not everybody's going to be Aaron Ekblad coming into their first season of the NHL. Well, he was very physically mature, and I think that also had put higher expectations on him because of his skill. It doesn't matter whether or not you're physically mature or not. You still got to learn and adapt to the NHL, the fast pace, and just reactionary. You have zero time to think out there. So the instant that you start thinking, you're done.
Yeah, even Cale Makar. I think there was a learning curve there for sure. Let's go to the sort of the second half of the third period, because this is where this got interesting. The timeout. It's a fascinating debate. Before we go to that, does anyone want to talk about the challenge?
It is what it is, and they're allowing them to go back that far. I'd like to see them put a time limit on how far back you can go, but they allow it, so you have to deal with it, and they got it wrong anyways. So
my only thing is, I guess my frustration is what that is. Okay, so there's some subjectivity to it. It's black and white for the most part, but there's some subjectivity to it. But when there's a too many men on the ice call, when there's 7 men, I think that there should be some allowance for a review there. To me, that's way more black and white, and I think you have to. I don't know. That's the sort of the part that I'm frustrated. But maybe we'll get to officiating a little bit later, because I think there's a whole gamut of that we can still talk about there. But anyway, that's sort of my frustration with that. But anyway, the timeout. I know that some people are there's a lot of fans out there is why didn't you call a timeout? And when everything is floundering a bit, and then lo and behold, Barry Trotz calls a timeout, and it does calm the team down. So clearly that worked. I think. Did we think it worked?
I think so. Yeah, I think it worked just fine. Not everybody's going to know. Barry Trotz has been around that team for the past few years, right? And there's not been very much change within that locker room. So he knows when that team needs to get a kick in the pants. If it was Jeff Ward, not a veteran coach, because we have talked about that before, and I'm cherry picking on Jeff Ward, even though he probably doesn't deserve it to a certain extent. But if it was a non-veteran coach, I feel like there'd be a lot more criticism. But this is Barry Trotz. He's won a cup. He's been well respected throughout the NHL ever since he came into the league with the Nashville Predators. So it's one of those things where you just accept, and understand that he knows his team better than us as fans know his team.
If you've been head coach in the NHL for over a decade, you've earned that right.
And it's so easy to armchair coach from your couch, and when you're watching TV, because it can be a little bit more obvious. But these coaches are paid to know where their players are at and how they're dealing with giving up a couple goals and giving up a 3-goal lead, and you're now protecting a 1-goal lead and whether they need the timeout or not is very subjective. So, yeah, I think it's so hard to really know unless you know the players, and how they're going to handle it. But they got the win, and it's a best of 3 now.
Yeah.
Now, if it went the other way, then there should be there would be a lot more criticism towards Barry Trotz for doing it when he did, but obviously that's not the case.
Yeah, he read it right. Like, just watching the body language, he wasn't yelling at his team. He just said, you know what you need to do, get going. Calmed it down, and they started to kind of turn it around a little bit. But if it wasn't for the Pollock save, there was a penalty called on Hedman with a minute that I'm sorry, I don't think that's a penalty. I have to agree with Gary Galley. That is not a penalty. Like, that is, it
was a light tap and a dive. That's what it was.
You barely even tapped him. Like, I guess a tap is very light, but like, holy fuck, are you kidding me? Yesterday, Tyler and I were talking about how terrible the officiating has been, how the inconsistencies when they're calling the fucking penalties. Like, how is that? Who in their right mind, with especially everything on the line, would call that fucking penalty? Holy!
With a minute 10 to go.
Oh, as Tampa Bay's losing, you're going to call penalty that fucking chintzy and on their best defenseman? Oh, it doesn't look good for the refs. Honestly, it looks absolutely fucking terrible. I felt for Hedman for that one.
And I guess, sorry, before someone is just saying, I guess, Tyler always has told us, don't put yourself in a position to make the referee make a decision, but Hedman didn't.
No.
Yeah, he did. He had his stick down by this game. I'm not saying it. Okay, hold on. I'm not saying it's a good call. I'm saying it was definitely a dive, but his stick was down by his skate. That's like tapping a guy up by his hands, even if it's a tap, right? You've put your stick up there, or put your stick up here in the guy's waist, and if you put your stick in a position where it could be called for any high sticking, hooking, tripping like that, that's just you're putting your hand, you're putting it in the ref's hands, and it's such a fast game. Like, I think the replays make it look more egregious than it is. It's still a bad call, but I think it is exactly what Tyler said there. He put his stick, he swiped at the puck, missed, got tapped his skate, and guess what? If in a fast-paced game, if the ref deems it as enough to be it, they're going to call it. And they said, I don't agree with it. I think it definitely should have been left alone. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a little more separated from this and I'm not emotionally involved, because you know me, I'd be yelling, screaming bloody murder if this was the Canucks in there, for sure. I'm not going to deny that. But when I look at it, and I think the game is so fast, you're going to get bad calls. Like, you talk about, let's go to compare it to the NFL. You could call holding on every play. You could call slashing, tripping, hooking on in 3-4 times a minute in hockey. And I think it's just unfortunate. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. I don't know if that's the right the right phrase to use, but it's bad calls are going to happen. You just have to find a way to fight through it and hope that it doesn't nail you at the wrong time.
It's how visibly egregious it appears on TV. Let's be honest. I'll as a Canucks fan, I'll admit, Cal Clutterbuck did exactly what Ryan Kessler would have done in 2011.
Yeah, and you got multiple players on multiple teams that would do the exact same thing. They sold the hell out of it. We got Euros on right now, and we've seen a few dives, and it happens, and I don't know. I don't know. How do you fix it? Well,
Devin, were you going to chime in there before I get in?
No, I'm staying out of this one a little bit just because it's just it's the timing is terrible, and like look at the circumstance. I'm sure there's been stuff like that was let go during the game. Like in the circumstance of where it was, yes, Sean. You put your stick in the skates here. You're asking for it, but there was nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. Honestly, I'm looking at it again right now. There's absolutely nothing there within that time that warranted for him to be called on that. So I don't have any stake in the race. I could care less about Tampa Bay. I'm not a big fan of Tampa. I don't want them to win, but it's about making the right call, and that was not the right call.
And I think when you compare, we'll compare this just for a quick second to an obvious missed call in overtime with Jonathan Marchessault and Corey Perry, and there's Perry is bleeding, and that is a missed call, and stuff like that doesn't get called. That seems to get missed, and then we get this call. That's where I think gets very confusing to me. It's okay, why are you calling this, but you're missing the Jonathan Marchessault hit? That and
again, it comes back to inconsistency.
Inconsistency, and it's different refs seeing different things. They could be in the wrong position to see it properly. That's I'm at the point where I want to see the refs get better, but I think we need to find a way to support them and trying to figure out how to fix this issue as opposed to just berating them for making mistakes. And I understand the frustration. I understand the anger that Bolts fans and hockey fans see, and let alone that brutal high stick on Corey Perry. I don't know how do we fix it, and is where I'm at. Maybe I'm just done. I see this and I'm just I guess maybe I'm just at the point where how do we fix it as opposed to just yelling and screaming. And hold on, before I get it. Like I said, I get it. It's not good. Both calls were it was a missed high stick, and then you have this, but this tripping call that was definitely a dive from Clutterbuck. But it's just we've got to find a way to create the narrative that we need to help and figure out what we can do to help support the officials make the right calls, whether it's I don't know, as opposed to just like I said, just getting upset and I don't know the best other than to say being irrational, emotional hockey fans. And I think it's like I said, I don't know what to think of it. Maybe I'm just numb to it because it's just it's happened so much that I'm okay, how do we fix this? How do we help them make the right calls?
Well, we can't help them. They have to do it themselves, period. And the guy who made that call, the ref who made that call on Hedman was right behind Cal Clutterbuck. And so are you in the right position to see that? I mean, perception is everything for sure, but I'm just baffled you're coming at this with such a calm, cool, and collective head, because like you said, if it was the Canucks, you'd be losing your fucking shit.
No, that's the fandom. That's fandom, though, right?
That's fandom.
It is absolutely. But what and I agree with you. There has to be some sort of solution. Yesterday, we discussed that it's more of an ego thing, and this is the conclusion that we came to, was that it's more of an ego thing than actually working together as the two refs and the linesmen, working as a team to make sure they make the right call.
Sorry.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry. Don't go ahead, Devin. I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
It's just within that circumstance, you can't take a call back, but be in the right position. That's all I'm saying. And if you're not in the right position, then that's on you.
Let's go back to the Braden Point push or the Braden Point collision on Varlamov. What bothered me wasn't that they got it wrong. is there was an opportunity there for both the referees and the linesmen to get together and figure out exactly what happened. Instead, it was like an instant call. And I wish that there was, I think the refs need to get together. And you see this in basketball. You see this in football. You even see this in baseball, where the officials get together and discuss what happened with the play. And I don't know if we see that enough in hockey in the NHL. And it's a bit confusing to me that happens. I mean, there's 4 on the ice. Let's kind of communicate. Wait, I think I saw 7 players on the ice there. Can we figure? I saw 7? Did you see 7? What did you like? Something there to discuss that? And partly that's refs, but partly that's on the NHL and maybe even us a little bit of fans that we're expecting this game to be over really quick. We want a quick game. We want this done in 2.5 hours so we can go have our beer with our friends. Maybe we need to be okay. Take your time, make the right call. It may take a little bit longer.
I don't think like it's the longer that it takes to review, there has to be some sort of middle ground. And I agree with you, Kev. We want to get the game going, but at the same time, you want to get the calls right so that we know that it's been called fairly.
Yeah. But that's sports though. As long as you have human beings making subjective calls, because no matter how black and white the rule is, unless it's puck over glass in hockey, a lot of this is subjectivity and where you see it from. It's so easy to see from that camera angle that it was a tap and Clutterbuck embellished. Clutterbuck dove.
Yeah.
But from the on the ice, if he called it from behind, I can understand why he called it. Honestly, it's still the wrong call, but I can understand why.
Pucks over glass is also subjective because there are times that, depending on the angle, it could look like it's deflected or it's off a glass. There's still some subjectivity to it, though.
Well, and like my biggest thing is that if you're not in the right position to call it, don't call it. Don't call it. Let the other guy across the ice, if he has a better view on it and he doesn't put up his arm, look at him, doesn't put up his arm. Okay, well, I trust that my partner will make the right call. That's what I'm getting at. Work as a team, not individuals.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. Sean points out, thanks, Sean, they have to be held accountable and get shit for these games. It's more than just one call, and if it keeps up, get rid of them. They could have looked the call under 10 minutes left. It's reviewable. I don't know if it is. And I think that maybe there's part of that I think that needs to I think there needs to be an examination of what is reviewable and what is not. And maybe we go to the point that all goal calls are reviewable, are not reviewable, are just reviewed by the on-ice official, make sure everything is okay like they've done in football. Maybe that's the way to do it and get it off the ref's hands. And then anything else that is you want to challenge, like a puck over glass or something like that, maybe that's the way to switch it. Maybe that I don't know.
I understand the frustration wanting these refs to be held accountable, but we also have to support them and try and help them make the right call and educate them on all this. We're like the depth these are the best refs in the world. And they're still having the issues. So maybe there's an issue. There's issues outside of the actual people calling the games that needs to be fixed here. There needs to be looked at to try and support these officials and make sure that they come out and explain the calls. Like you have a controversial call like this one. You have you don't even have to have. Remember when we had Brendan Shanahan with the implement the videos to explain the suspensions? Maybe if you have some controversial calls, you put together something like that to help inform why the decision was made, and you can still do that and say this is why we made it, and then you can look at the different angles and everything and still come to the same conclusion that maybe it wasn't the best call to be made, but we made it based off of this information and this view. and then try it, but also just like it's you gotta support them if we want better reffing. Punishing the best refs in the world for making bad calls or following the mandate of the NHL to let things go until it's and then when you actually do call it, everyone's confused. That's not putting them in a situation to succeed. It's so much bigger than just the people making the calls. That's the issue here.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I mean Tyler has talked a number of times about trying to get people, even in the lower levels, to actually want to officiate. It's not something that a lot of people want to do. You get yelled at a lot. You even get yelled at in minor hockey. I mean, that story is endless and endless and endless. And I do agree that there needs to be support for the officials, and I think even hopefully, I hope ESPN or TNT, I hope one of the things that they do bring in is a rules analyst. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Bring in a rules analyst, bring in a referee that can explain some of these calls. I think Gary Galley does a really good job of trying to doing as best as he can to explain that. And Ron McLean tries, but he's not a National Hockey League referee, which makes it a little bit different. So I think adding that element into the package, I think, would be good. But I don't disagree with you that we need that there needs to be support for officials. It's frustrating when you see some of the things that do get called and some of the blatant things that do get missed.
I totally agree with that. It's very frustrating.
It's just that they're consistently inconsistent, and that's where the problem is. And these are the best refs in the world. We're watching the best hockey players in the world. We can criticize the fuck out of them. We're not supporting them, right? But it's within their own organization, as far as like the refs union, that they need to support themselves with. And once again, it's about working together. But I think they're too worried about their own jobs to actually do that, because it is if you don't do something right, or if you don't make a call, or if you do make a call that isn't correct, then I think there is so much scrutiny and so much pressure behind these refs that they sometimes get scared, or do make a snaps decision that they probably regret after looking at the tape after.
Yeah, and just as we'll transition to this other series here, can you imagine if Vegas won that game on Friday night?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is, like, we see the coaches come out and answer the bell to the and talk to the media. We see players come out. We don't see the officials. And I don't know if that's the right way to have them talk to pool reporters is the right way to go, but there needs to be something there where it's, because there's so much. It's so important. It is important. It could cost the game. It could cost the series for players and teams and fans. You have to find a way to whatever's going on right now isn't working. They need to find a way to look at it differently and find a way to help make the officials make the right calls, help the fans and the media and the players understand what they saw, and go forwards from that. Because I think it'd be a lot more, and it'd be a lot easier to take if you had a little more people. You had someone coming out and explaining some of the calls, even if, like, especially in the playoffs. I know you've got they usually have a supervisor that works each series. Have them come out and talk, and explain. And you might have to. You can't have it as open and as you have with coaches and players, but you need to have it have a little more a little more openness with fans, media, and players on why the penalties were called, why the penalties weren't called, and everything like that. Because the NHL does come out and explain goal and no goal calls when they're reviewed. Why can't we have that with controversial penalties?
Yeah.
Fair comment.
Fair. Anything else on this series?
Nope.
I think we're good.
All right, let's. We'll transition here. There is a tweet from Kyle Bizkakis this morning, and I will just show this. I have a theory. As we share this from Kyle Bizkakis, Robin Lehner, first goalie off the ice. I don't know if Pete DeBoer is pulling a Travis Green here, i.e., how the Montreal Canadiens handled their defense with their sticks. But I would be very surprised that Robin Lehner starts tonight. Look, I get that was a huge gap by Marc-Andre Fleury, and it was a turning point in the series. There's no question about it. But there's no way I still go back to him. He's been your number one goalie all year. He's been your Vezina candidate. He's been your MVP candidate. You're not here because to me, throwing in Lehner here, that would be a strange decision from my perspective.
Yeah, I think what I would do, put Fleury in, and he has a short leash. If it happens again, you pull him, you send the message, and you get Lehner in there. Because how much confidence that's the other question, is if you're Peter DeBoer, I would be talking to my players, asking how much confidence do you have within Fleury? Because I can guarantee you that if you're not confident within your goalie that's back there going and playing pucks, you leave him in the net. You say, okay, Fleury, don't play the puck. Or you have the defense and you have the forwards trying to compensate and trying to support him more than what he needs. And so that it's a fine balance between that. It's hard because of how poorly Lehner played his one game in the playoffs so far as well. It might be just a head game that he's playing with Ducharme and the Montreal Canadiens. It's I know Ducharme's he's in quarantine still, so he won't be a part of it. But if it was me, put him in, and he has a short leash.
You signed Lehner to a decent sized deal. You kept him because you wanted to have two good goaltenders and go to whoever you think gives you the best chance to win. I think if he feels that Lehner gives him the best chance to win right now, if he feels that Fleury might be in his own head right now, you go with Lehner. But it's a tough decision. The only way you look like a genius is if you win.
I mean, Sean's not wrong.
Yeah, I guess I know that you did, but I just this is, I guess, one of the, a further debate. I mean, I joked that Marc-Andre Fleury paid tribute to Mike Smith because that's the low hanging fruit. But at times, there's also times that when Marc-Andre Fleury plays a puck, it's brilliant. Like the series, one series ago, in Colorado was Game 3. He jumped almost to the blue line to knock the puck out of the way. So that there's a risk that you take in terms of a goaltender playing the puck. There's pros and cons to it. I mean, if we probably looked back, the best to do it are probably Brodeur and Turco. But there's a lot of goalies that probably would have made a mistake. I mean, and let's not forget, let's give Josh Anderson credit for there, because his hustle made it a non-icing call, because that could have been icing. He deserves some credit for that too. Like, it was a huge gap. I'm not saying that it wasn't. To me, I go with I stick and I run with I run with the guy that gets me there. If it's a blowout, if it's a 3 or 4 goal thing, then I'll put Lehner in. But I don't know. I have a hard time betting against Fleury, because every time I bet against Fleury, he proves me wrong. So maybe that's partly where I'm coming from. But I'd run with him.
Yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah, Sean did say the best. If whatever way it goes, if Vegas wins, he looks like a genius. But if he doesn't, then it's hard to say. But once again, it depends if it is a blowout or if it's a really close game and Lehner's playing well. Man, it's hard to really to really handicap it without understanding where Fleury's head is at, considering how many times he has had those gaps within his career. Going back to the World Juniors, man, and the first game of this series, first dump in, he almost lost it there too. So he can't not be like It's hard to think that it's not within his head, because he has had those mental issues, and it's been well documented that he's been seeing a sports psychologist throughout the years. Do you want somebody in net that is confident? Absolutely. Is Robin Lehner going to be confident going to net? Absolutely. Do you think that Fleury is 100% there? If I was a betting man, which I am sometimes, I'm not going that way right now.
Yeah, this is similar to the timeout discussion. We can make the comments and dissect it a little bit, but unless you know these goalies and you can see them day to day, you know where they're at. It's hard for us to really be able to criticize, or well, we can criticize. It's hard to fully understand whether or not the right decision has been made. And I think it's, as I said, I can understand why they're going to Lehner. I think it might be a bit of a wake up call to the team as well. I like it. We got to go. I don't know what, we got to do something here. But you got to find Vegas has became more of like a two line team now with Chandler Stevenson out, and they're trying to rotate through centers and to see who can play with Pacioretty and Mark Stone and create some offense. They aren't creating enough. They're Carey Price is Carey Pricing them right now, and that's the biggest difference.
How I asked Tyler this yesterday of Christian Sean, how much is this series similar to what you saw against Vancouver?
It's not. I think Montreal's creating a little more offense than Vancouver did. Vancouver was definitely a lot more in a just survival shell mode, especially when they were in the defensive zone. So I think Montreal's handling it a little bit better, creating a little more chances on their own. But Vegas is getting goalied again. So there is that similarity.
Yeah, I was going to say the biggest similarity I see is the fact that they're getting Demcode right now to a certain degree. Yeah, it's just a matter of whether they can figure out how to solve their offensive deficiencies.
See, Joel doesn't agree. He doesn't think that Carey Price has stolen a game yet. Like, he's been good, but he hasn't. It hasn't been. If it wasn't for Price, that game he hasn't stolen one yet.
Like, it might not be like an outright steal, but he's been playing good enough to be able to get into Vegas's head, in my mind.
The way I look at it is, I've got the series stats up from Natural Stat Trick, and the high danger save percentages tell the story. For Carey Price, it's 94.87% high danger save percentage, and for Vegas and Fleury, it's 87.18. That's maybe it's not like a full on steal, but when you look at that, for me, that says everything. That means Carey Price is making the big saves on quality chances significantly more than Fleury has. Let alone you look at the discrepancy on the control of play and shot attempts and shots on net. It's been Carey Price. He has been the difference.
It might not be highlight reel saves, but he's made those critical saves when he's needed to.
Fair. I just brought that up. I can see both sides of that. Yeah, Vegas, they're going to need offense from forwards in general. But Montreal is also going to have to create some more opportunities. So to be fair, I mean, what was it? 9 shots on goal in 2 periods is generally not going to get it done. They are going to have to create some more offense, I think. And I think it's great that the Suzuki Toffoli Caulfield line has probably been their best line. But I do think they'll need some offense from other places as well. They got it from the Josh Anderson line, so they need to continue that. But I think the first 2 periods they need to create more offense because, yeah.
Well, and to Fleury's credit too, not having that much traffic and not having that many shots on you to get in the rhythm of the game is hard. To stay focused for that long, and that could have been a detriment to his psychology, his mental game during that big gaffe that he did. So, but yeah, going back to Montreal, they 100% need to press more. You know, that shooting percentage isn't going to be like that forever. And especially if you do get the goalie, either if it's going to be Leonard or Fleury, into a rhythm and you make them start feeling good, then, man, that's both of those goalies are good goalies and they can steal games. So they just need to create more pressure for the Vegas in the Vegas defensive zone.
But I have to also credit Nick Suzuki too on one. I mean, that Braden McNabb hit that he took, that was to me it was a clean hit.
So clean, so beautiful.
It was a perfect hit. But for him yeah, and for him to come, but Suzuki to come back and continue to make a play after that, that was. And McNabb did it twice too. He also on Lekin, and he laid a nice hit out too there too. I think Braden McNabb is a bit underappreciated. I'm a big fan of him. But if I'm wearing this shirt, I might hope that the Golden Knights leave him unprotected, but I doubt that would happen.
Well, they can't. They're not part of it.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Stupid league.
But as far as McNabb's concerned, I will fully agree with you, Kevin. Like, I actually didn't realize that him and I actually lived in the same small town, Saskatchewan, for part of my youth. He's about 2.5 years younger than me, so we never played in the same league or same division, if you will, or tier. But just the fact that we played in the same town in the same minor leagues for a brief period of time was kind of a cool connection.
Cool. Yes. For those who don't know, where is that?
So, yeah, Davidson, Saskatchewan. So you're about an hour in between Saskatoon and Regina, right on Highway 11.
And they're known for their A&W.
It's their only claim to fame. They're a small town of sub 1,000 people. So, yeah, they have an A&W.
Sub 1,000. A population of sub 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh, Saskatchewan. Yeah. Just my other thing on this too, I guess, is I'll just be interested to see what Kevin Woodley has to say about the goaltending situation in Vegas, because he knows what's going on there. But
Fleury has 1 more year left on his contract at $7 million, and then you think that they'll probably walk away from him. And considering he is 35, I'm going to be turning 36 next year. So, or no, he's 36, going to turn 37 next year. So you got to expect that they'll probably do a tandem and maybe give Laney the reins for the majority of the games next year.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That's an interesting.
Depending on how many games he steals, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically with them. It's basically you start the season off and see who's starting to play well and go with who's playing better. That's what you have to do with them for next season. And what Fleury decides to do after that contract is up is we'll see.
But Devin is right in the sense of like it's going to be like a 1-2 to a 1A 1B next season.
I think so. And even if Fleury is playing well, you're gonna let Fleury play ahead of Lehner. If you have Lehner for the next 4 years after that, I don't know. It's hard to not have that in the back of their mind as well.
Yeah. It's going to be. It's an interesting, a very interesting situation in Vegas. What's going to happen whenever the off season comes. So
because that's 12 million wrapped up in goaltending for next season for them.
Yeah.
So you got to find a way to make it at least something efficient and play him that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on this series?
Not necessarily on this series, but we talked about. I mentioned this. Your poll question about Cole Caulfield. I just want to bring this up because I think that is you're asking a question without all the information. We're talking about a 20-year-old, and you're comparing him to a guy who hasn't even turned 20 yet, and hasn't played in the NHL, and it's not for his fault. The poll question was like, should Canucks fans feel regret for not drafting Cole Caulfield?
No. I'm going to have to interrupt you there because that wasn't what the poll question was. The poll question was how are you feeling about it? And that was specifically how I worded that. And I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't. I think it's a question. I think that I wonder about, and you're right. I don't think that necessarily. Nope. I'm going to speak. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I think Devin and what we concluded yesterday is it's probably it's even too early to appreciate what Cole Caulfield is right now. He's got fresh legs. He's played probably 20 games less than everybody else has at this particular point. I'm not saying that Cole Caulfield is not spectacular and Cole Caulfield isn't doing great right now, but it's probably too early to appreciate Cole Caulfield at this point. He's being spectacular, but I think that I just think it's an interesting question. I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer to it. And that's the point of questions, right?
There is a wrong answer to this one because it's way too early. We're talking about a player who has not had a chance to play in the NHL that you're comparing Cole Caulfield to. And it's not because he hasn't been good enough. It's because he hasn't had a chance to because he's from Russia, because he hasn't had the chance to move over from the KHL to the NHL yet. And that's the issue I take with that. Your question, word for word, was how much are you starting to regret that the Canucks did not draft Cole Caulfield? And I have all the time in the world to say that Cole Caulfield's a great player. Cole Caulfield's going to be a really good goal scorer in this league. But when you start comparing him to a player who hasn't even had a chance to prove how good he is at the NHL,
you know what? I'm just going to say this. Bringing this up on a public forum like this is insulting to me personally, and I'm just going to leave it there, and we're just going to move on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I wasn't trying to insult.
No,
you.
it is insulting. Actually, then I apologize for insulting.
No, with this. No. Oh, let me talk, Kevin. This is insulting for me. If you're going to not let me finish what I'm trying to say, because I'm trying to reach out the olive branch. I wanted to discuss this because I wanted to bring up my opinion on this. And if you're not willing to let me have my say on this, that's insulting to me. But I'm willing to understand that maybe I approached this the wrong way, and I'm offering my olive branch out and saying I apologize for that. It wasn't meant to be as a issue with you or anything. It was an issue with the question. Okay, and I don't know what I just don't like. I am legit sorry if you felt that I was attacking you or anything. I just did not like the question, and I wanted to get my 2 cents in. That's all.
Probably could have been brought up after the podcast or something along those lines. But let's move on here. What else is on our list?
I don't have it currently up right now.
I will pull it up right now.
Braden Point, is he a top 10 player in the NHL?
It's a good argument.
He's definitely fighting for it.
I pulled up the list of players that I would automatically rank him ahead, or rank ahead of him. That's McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, Draisaitl, Barkov, Rantanen, and Hedman and Crosby.
Rantanen up there, eh?
Rantanen is fighting for it too. I'll say that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, It's crazy because you had basically the entire NHL leave Braden Point and question his size, right? He's a fantastic player. I think that he is arguably definitely top 15, top 10. The microscope is on him too right now because he has played so well in this playoffs and he has the most goals within this NHL playoffs, and he's proven throughout the years that he is a playoff performer that does show up when it actually does matter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say he's like a super clutch player, but like he definitely has shown up as far as like if he needs to be there and help out with scoring, he absolutely is going to be there for sure.
What's crazy is I think you can make the argument he's not even he's the third best player on his team or fourth best. Like that's how deep the Lightning are, because you got Hedman. Like I didn't put goaltenders because I think it's so hard to compare, in my opinion. But you got Hedman, you've got Kucherov, you got Vasilevsky, and then you got Point. And I think it's so hard. That's just the embarrassment of riches that the Lightning have
there too,
and there's Stamkos as well. But and then I listed the players that like are right around where I think Point fits. You can make an argument for them all because I went with let's see from the 2017-18 season to this season, and Point in terms of points per game, because I looked at that, and he is 27th or tied for 26th in the league for that. But points aren't everything, right? So I feel like you can make an argument for a lot of these players. I think he's right on the cusp, right in the argument, and I'm here for that argument that he's a top 10 player. I don't know if I can put him there, but I'm very open to that one because I've seen him play live, and he is the engine of that Tampa Bay forward group. He is the heart and soul of that team. Kucherov may be more skilled, but Point is the engine and the guy who drives the bus.
It's almost like a Horvat versus like PD sort of comparison. Like he might not be like the top point producer, but he is there and he is very much a part of that point production.
Dev?
Yeah, I agree. He's like I said, he's top 15 for sure in the league. In my mind, I think you can make the argument that he is there. I would put him ahead of Rantanen. Talk about two young guys that are kind of solidifying themselves within that argument. So yeah.
But yeah, both of them are definitely fighting for that like top 10 attention in the league sort of tier.
Mm-hmm. See, I think Point has a bit more of a well-rounded game than Rantanen does. Granted, I don't really watch too many Colorado Avalanche games, but I think that overall he has a bigger impact on his team than Rantanen does. I think Rantanen is just a good sniper, when Braden Point is just a good 3-zone player. And I say just.
I'll probably take you probably have a more deeper technical appreciation for his game, but at least from my eye test, I feel like they're very comparable as far as like their impact on their overall team.
Yeah.
Like I'll say the list that I had that you're trying to fill out. I had Kucherov as part of my sort of top 9, but I said I think you can make an argument that Point's the ability to drive the bus and be the engine of that team can bring him up above him. But the rest, like you got Jonathan Huberdeau, Mark Stone, David Pasternak, Brad Marchand, Patty Kane. Don't forget how good Patty Kane is.
Yeah.
Panarin. Malkin's on his way down, but still very good. Sebastian Aho's on his way up. Don't forget about the best goal scorer of this generation and arguably the best goal scorer of all time, and Alex Ovechkin. Are you telling?
Did you have Matthews on there?
I've had Matthews in that first 9.
Oh, okay, all right, just making sure.
Otherwise, we might have another argument going on.
I give Devin a hard time, but about that. But Austin Matthews is legit, right there, and
he's a top tier goal scorer, bar none.
Well,
and
and his two-way game is underrated. His defensive play has gotten really it's solidified and it's well-rounded in comparison to what he was kind of touted out to be. He within the past year and a half to 2 years, he's gotten a lot better in his defensive zone. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is up for the Selke eventually. And I know that might be a hot take, but honestly, he's underrated.
Another borderline hot take. I'm not going to say he's on the exact same tier, but I've seen a similar change in overall game with Brock Besser.
Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, I was about to say I didn't even mention like a Mitch Marner or a Petey, or let alone like going into the younger defensemen. You got Heiskin in and McCarr and Hughes, and like they're not top 10, but I think there's a range from like 9 down to into the mid teams that you can make an argument for anyone, and it's going to be tough to really say that you're obviously wrong. So
yep,
for sure.
What else we got going on here?
Did you actually pull up the list earlier? Because
Jacob Slavin winning the Lady Byng.
Happy for him. I think well deserved. Love that Ron Francis presented that to him and talked with him. So it was just that connection there with. I believe he drafted him as well. So it's kind of a nice little cherry on top, along with Francis. He's won it twice as well. So I'm very, very happy for Slavin.
Yeah, and the voting wasn't even close. It was Slavin by a country mile.
Yeah, I think it's. Sorry, go for it.
I was like, I just want him to have a chance at the Norris, because I don't think people realize how good defensively he is, and we've gotten to a point with the Norris where I just don't think we give enough credit to defensive defensemen.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think that overall I think they need to change the name of the Lady Byng. I think it's very old school, and we're all about tradition here in the NHL. I was looking at it last night. There's a few players that have. There's one guy who won it 6 times, but that was back in the 30s, and I even think that going that far back it might be a bit too much. But you had recently Datsuk winning it 3 or 4 years in a row. And you had Wayne Gretzky winning it 4 years intermittently within his career. I just think that switching it up would be good, because like the history on Lady Byng is the fact that she was the Governor General of Canada's wife. What? How does that have to pertain to hockey? So I just think that should be a conversation to have without throwing too much shade towards the Byngs if they're still around.
Yeah, I think it's I agree with you, Dev. As much as it's nice to with tradition and all that, I think it is time to update some of the, especially that one, because it's not.
And the NHL has shown that like they're not afraid to like rename some of these awards, like whether it was the Ted Lindsay or I think Willie O'Ree was an original one, but like they've been willing to like show like, okay, maybe this is a little outdated. Let's update it. Let's change the name of it. Let's make it a little bit more modern and relevant to what the current award is. And if we feel like the Lady Byng has kind of reached that point, let's change it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, what's on the list there, Sean?
We have the Sam Reinhart. Should the Flames or Canucks use their 9th or 12th pick overalls to trade for Sam Reinhart?
Oh, with the Flames, it really depends on which way you're going within the organization. Are you going to try and trade Johnny Gaudreau before his contract is up, because there are once again rumblings and whispers that he doesn't want to be here, even though he has been saying this entire time that he doesn't want to stay and he loves the city. And I know that's that's pretty average for players coming up on their contract, whether or not they're going to stick around once they become a UFA or have a contract extension within the next little bit. But I love the player of Sam Reinhart. I think that he is very underrated and obviously underutilized within Buffalo. And it really depends on what is going back the other way with that first round pick. It would be for me, it would be a first round pick and a good prospect and maybe a lower round pick. But either way, that's still a lot for getting a Sam Reinhart. I feel like as much I would love to see him in a Flames uniform, the price is probably going to be a bit too high for the Flames to wanting to give up potentially a Dubé or a Mangiapane, especially the way that Mangiapane is grown as a player in the past 2 years. So, yeah, I don't think that they should, considering the price or what I project the price would be.
And from what I've heard, like, it seems like the Canucks are even in an even worse situation than the Flames. Like, the Flames at least have like some pieces that they could move that might be like a reasonable comparison to him, whereas it definitely seems like the Canucks' hands are more tied right now, and Sean can definitely either dispute that or back me up on that if he wants.
The thing with the Canucks is that they've traded away a couple first-round picks or high picks in the past couple drafts, whether it was a first-round pick in the past 2020 draft or a first, and they also traded away a second-round pick in that draft as well. So they didn't really have much until the third round last year. Once Podkolzin comes up, their prospect cupboard is a little thin. You've got some players who have a chance to be sort of good depth players, but you kind of need to continue to keep the prospect train rolling here. And they've got one more year to sort of try and navigate some tight cap issues. And whether or not I just don't know what Sam Reinhart may get. Like, he's making 5.2 on the cap this year, and I don't see that going down. He's also coming off a career year with shooting lights out, so I don't know if that he's going to repeat that. He's still going to be a very good player for whoever he ends up with, because he's for everything I have a hard time believing he's going to be back in Buffalo, whether or not it's a trade or someone actually stepping up and offer sheeting him, because he's a year away from UFA too. So that's another thing, is you can't just have him sign a 1-year deal and walk him to UFA after giving up at least a first, let alone probably at least one or two more pieces that are going to be significant enough. So if you are acquiring him, you have to know that he's signing long term, at least three years with your team. So I think Calgary's in a much better position to get Reinhart, and I think the Canucks need to. The other thing is, I think the Canucks need to focus in on that blue line. They figure out what they're going to do with their blue line as opposed to the forwards, because I think they've got enough young forwards that they can make something work for this season, and then maybe try and tweak things a little bit more going into the 2022-23 season.
It's fair.
It definitely seems like, and I know like the Vancast isn't like the end all be all of like Canucks opinions, but like definitely from their podcast, I heard a similar notion to what Sean just said. So like I have to completely agree with that.
And then we've got more OEL, more Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade talk coming up. From what I understand is that the Coyotes, the Coyotes GM is trying to do a different approach to this, as opposed to just letting Ekman-Larsson choose two teams. or one team that he would accept the trade for. They're going to go out, see what's out there, and then approach Ekman Larsson with the trade and the situation, and let him make the decision whether or not he'll accept. So I think that could potentially open up a lot more doors for them to and teams to negotiate with. So I don't think we're back to Jim Benning hyper focused on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I think I hope, I don't know, I don't think I can say I think he's learned from it. I hope he's learned from that and is willing to understand that they've got Nate Schmidt, who I hope is coming back. They've got Quinn Hughes, and Jack Rathbone, that they can have the puck moving abilities. Let alone if you can finally let the giraffe loose and give Tyler Myers some room to gallop and move up the ice. It's time to find the right mix with everyone there, and that may not be going after a big ticket contract in Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
The fact that Schmidt is still under contract for at least a year, I'm not sure what his actual contract situation is, but I feel like the fact that we have him under contract should mitigate that temptation that Benning may have that he definitely had last year.
Yeah, he's under contract for 4 years, at a shade under 6. It's just whether or not you can make the money work with OEL. OEL has 6 years left at $8.25 million. So that's a big cap hit to try and trade and find a trade partner, especially him at 29 years old. I don't know if that's going to work for Jim Benning, but I just feel like he might feel like he has some unfinished business within last season, and maybe try to solidify his thought process and in trying to make it work with Arizona. And it was the detriment to not getting Chris Tanev, not getting Tyler Toffoli back, and that's all kind of speculation. I know that there was some real thought or talks behind that, but I just thought it was interesting that they still are trying to find a trade partner, the Arizona Coyotes, with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And I do know that Boston was in on that as well last year, so maybe that still could be a possibility, especially with that defensive core that does need a bit more stability in that top four, because I think that's where they really struggled, losing a Torrey Krug, losing a Zdeno Chara. Like, those are massive pieces gone. Yeah, you have good prospects, or a good prospect in McAvoy, and Grzelcyk. He's kind of been a good piece, but Grzelcyk has been injured within this past year, and I think that could be a landing spot for OEL as well. Now, there's also talk. There's speculation that since Brad Treliving was a part of the Arizona organization, that he could be looking around to see if we could bring in an Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I personally don't think that is what Calgary needs. It really depends on if they feel like that they can have a step forward with the Rasmus Andersons of the organization, along with a Valimaki or even a Connor Mackey. I just think that those pieces are there at a cheaper price, and you could. I don't think Calgary really needs to go after an OEL.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We got Eichel as well out there.
Hamilton.
Hamilton. There has to be something that breaks the dam here coming soon, even if it is before the Cup finals are over.
Sorry, one more team is Tampa Bay. What's Tampa Bay going to do with their cap situation too? They're someone else, like there's always the joke, is someone else going to be on LTIR for the rest of the year, for the entire year next year? I think it's Hedman's turn. He drew the short straw, but I don't know. And there's definitely a lot of teams out there that do have cap issues and have players wanting out, and along with Calgary with Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, that's been talked about for years. So yeah, Sean, you're 100% right.
Let alone the lead, we're starting to see here rumblings about the sticker shock of what Ron Francis is asking for in terms of expansion trade there, and whether or not teams are going to try and look elsewhere to try and avoid having to pay those prices.
Everyone's definitely a little apprehensive after what happened with Vegas, for sure.
It is. It's either, okay, I'm going to help somebody else out, another GM, another team, or then rather help out a new up-and-coming team. And I mean, I'm sure Anaheim would definitely do that over again if they could, instead of giving Shea Theodore and protecting Sammy Vatanen and Josh Manson instead. And look where Sammy Vatanen is now. He's been around the NHL a little bit. So it's this offseason, I love this stuff, and I cannot wait to see how it all unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else
I think that's
want
it.
to talk about? Yeah.
I mean,
okay. Well, with Kevin not here right now, I guess I'll sign us off. And on behalf of Kevin, Devin, Chris, Tyler as well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving us your time. I understand it. You have other places you can be, and you can follow us at.
I guess I'm first at this point. I'm at Schneid's on most social media.
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Kevin is Kevole. Tyler is Tnoble, TNOLOOBLE. I am Beardy Canuck 03. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. You can get we'll put up the audio as soon as we can here. And then you can follow us on please subscribe and like on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook as well. Kevin's so much better at this than I am. And I guess, like I said, thank you so much, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now.